Define sharing rules, learning objectives. After completing this unit, you will be able to use sharing rules to extend access beyond the role hierarchy structure, create a public group that includes users with different profiles and roles, extend access with sharing rules. Your org-wide default sharing settings give you a relatively restrictive baseline level of access for each object. If you have org-wide sharing rules, defaults of public read-only or private, you can open access backup for some users with sharing rules. This enables you to make automatic exceptions to your org-wide sharing settings for selected sets of users. Sharing rules can be based on who owns the record or on the values of fields in the record. For example, use sharing rules to extend sharing access to users in public groups or roles. As with role hierarchies, sharing rules can never be stricter than your org-wide default settings. They just allow greater access for particular users. Each sharing rules has three components. Share which records. You can share records owned by certain users or meeting certain criteria. Criteria-based sharing rules determine what records to share based on field values other than ownership. With which users, you can define groups of user roles by territory or by defining a public group. A public group is an admin-defined group of users that can be used to simplify the creation of sharing rules. Each public group can be a combination of individual users, roles and subordinates, territories and subordinates, other public groups. What kind of access? You can assign either read-only or read-write access. Sharing rules works best when they are defined for a particular group of users that you can determine or predict in advance, rather than a set of users that frequently change. For example, in the recruiting app, it's important to share every position, candidate, job application, and review with every recruiter. Since recruiters all belong to either the recruiting manager or recruiter's role in the role hierarchy, we can easily use a sharing rule to share those objects with the recruiting manager role and its subordinates. Alternatively, consider another use case for the recruiting app. Interviewers need read access on the candidates and job application for people they are interviewing. In this case, the set of interviews is a lot harder to predict in advance. Hiring managers might use different set of interviews depending on the position for which they are hiring, and the interviews might come from different groups in the role hierarchy. So this use probably shouldn't be handled with sharing rules. The team of interviews for any given manager is just too hard to predict. Should we use a sharing rule? Let's go through a set of required permissions we still want to implement and pick out the ones that work best with sharing rules. Recruiters need read and update access on every position, candidate, job application, and review record that exists in the app. Yes, as we have discussed previously, it's easy to pick out the group of recruiters in our role hierarchy. Hiring managers need read and update access on position and job posting records and which they are hiring manager. No, it's too hard to predict which position will be assigned to which hiring manager. We'll need to handle this use case some other way. Hiring managers need read access on candidate records on which they are the hiring manager. No, again, it's too hard to predict which position will be assigned to which hiring manager. Hiring managers need read and update access on every job application and review record. Yes, since we are not restricting which job application and reviews a hiring manager gets to read and update, we can easily pick out all the hiring managers from our role hierarchy and define a sharing rule for them. Interviewers need read access on the candidate and job application records for people they are interviewing. No, as we have discussed previously, it's too hard to predict who will be a member of an interview team for a particular position. To summarize, here are the key sharing rules we defined for the recruiting app. Object, review, candidate, position. So here you can see the different sharing rules, rule label, owned by, share with, and so on. Define a public group. Before creating a sharing rule, it's important to set up the appropriate public group. A public group is a collection of individual users, other groups, individual roles or territories, and roles or territories with their subordinates that all have a function in common. For example, users with the recruiting profile as well as users in the SW Dev Manager role both review job applications. Using a public group when defining a sharing rule makes the rule easier to create and, more important, easier to understand later, especially if it's one of many sharing rules that you are trying to maintain in a large organization. Create a public group if you want to define a sharing rule that encompasses more than one or two groups or rules or any individual. Looking at the required permission that we want to implement, there are just two objectives that need a public group for their sharing rules: job application and review. The good news is that we can cover these objects in a single group because the review object is on the detail side of a master-detail relationship, so it inherits the sharing settings we apply for the job application object. Since both recruiters and hiring managers need read and update access to job application and review, we can define a public group called reviewers that includes both recruiters and hiring managers. In Setup, use a quick find box to find public groups. Click New. Okay, let's do this. So now we create a new group here. Label reviewers. Roles and subordinates. If you run the label reviewers. The group name text box populates automatically, that's right. In the search drop-down list, choose rules. In the available members list, select SW manager. I'm not really seeing that here. But anyway, let's just add something random. Go back up the search drop-down list and this time choose role and subordinates. In the available members list, like recruiting manager. Also not here. Once you've defined your group, you can use it to define sharing roles. Okay, it kind of doesn't make sense to continue with this much because the ones that we want, they are not here. Define a sharing rule. Let's use the public group we've created to define a sharing rule for review records. We can define a sharing rule for a single public group, role, or territory. You can also define a sharing rule for a role plus its subordinates, or for a territory plus its subordinates. There's already one default public group that encompasses every user in your organization. In the setup, quick find box, find sharing settings. Okay, let's do this. In the manage sharing settings for drop down list, choose job application. I don't really see that here. Let's just choose something random, because we don't have job application here. Maybe I created it in another account, because I have two. I have one developer account and another one is the playground here, so maybe it's there, I'm not sure. But anyway, let's just continue with a test object here. So click new, give your rule the label review records. The rule name text box populates automatically, that's correct. For the rule type, make sure based on record owner is selected. Yes, it's selected. For select which records to be shared, select public groups and choose the entire organization. Don't really see that here. Only all internal users or reviewers. Select. Yes, to share is select reviewers. Yes, we have that. First, select the level of access for the user, reach right and save. Okay. We just created a rule that shares reviews written and owned by any member of the org with all recruiters and hiring managers. Since reviewers and hiring managers all need to read and update records and reviews, we handle everyone as a single sharing rule and a public group. Have some warning here, but I guess we can ignore this. So let's just go straight to the challenge. Set sharing rules for training coordinator and projects. Project custom object records should only be seen by the owner of the record and users above the owner on the role hierarchy. However, for some project records, the training coordinator must also have read-only visibility to the project records. Create a custom pick list field on the project object called priority with the following values: high, medium, and low. Then create a criteria-based sharing rule for project records where the priority is high to share those records with a training coordinator role. Type, review recommendations, and so on and so forth. Let's see if I need to go to my other account, but this looks like we can do this in the Trailhead playground, so let's just try this here. So let's go to project manager, pick project object. Create a custom field on the project object, field type pick list, field label priority. Okay, let's do this. New pick list. Field label priority. Values. Medium, high, low. Make the field visible to all profiles and add it to the product page layouts. Don't really see anything to add there, so let's just go to the next one. It's here. Looks good. Create a sharing rule. Okay. Label and rule name can be anything you choose. Let's call it test. Test 1, 2, 3, just in case there's some overlap. I don't really remember if anything there needs to be unique, but let's just make it more likely that there will be no conflicts of any kind. We should provide access if priority is high. Okay, so this would be based on criteria equals high. Or maybe you can just like pick it here, yeah. And there it's selected. Training coordinator, let's see if we have it here. That's tricky. We don't have a training coordinator here. I think we will need to create the role there, I guess, because we don't have it. So let's create this. And we will like need to redo this. Yeah, I guess there's no other way. Roles. Set up roles. And create the training coordinator role. Already populate, so maybe we already created it, maybe it was created somewhere else. So we have created this, and now let's go back. Project. Okay, name can be anything, so let's just do this test 1 to 3 based on criteria. Priority equals high. Roles, and now we have the training coordinator here. Access read write, and I hope this does the job, so let's see. Challenge not yet completed. The sharing rule did not behave as expected. Okay. Edit this. Equals high. Who should provide access to the training coordinator role? Access should be read-only, okay. Don't set the organization rights defaults. Okay, I guess that was a problem. Misread that, so let's see if that works. Organization-wide default, let's see if there might be some issue there. Let's checking. Oh, but it's already done, and we got a new badge. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. If you have any feedback for me, positive and negative, just type it in the comment box. Thank you so much and have a good day.